Just be glad for all you have that's in today.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my reaction to Mob Psycho 100, Season 2, Episode 8. So, this season is 13 episodes. I actually was surprised by that. I found that out while I found that out while recording my redirect and reaction for Kakegurui XX. I thought it was going to be a lot longer, but no. Apparently, it's only 13 episodes. Now, here's what I have to say going into episode 8 here. This season has been extremely underwhelming for me. I know that a lot of people have said that this season has really made Mob Psycho one of their favorite shows. One huge example is Jeff Thew from Mother's Basement, who has come out saying that it is his favorite anime. I'm not on that. I'm not on that side. I don't think it's bad, but I think that this season, in my opinion, has done more things wrong than right. And it's really made me lose a lot of interest in this show. Now, unless they really do something bad this episode, I'm going to continue and finish this season. In fact, my plan is that we're going to do episode 8 today. I would do maybe more, but I also have to get to Star Versus, and then there's other stuff and yada yada. And then next week, I'm going to do even more. I'm going to do more than one episode. I'm going to try to catch up and get as many done as I can. And we'll just kind of go from there. Basically to try to catch up with the series so that once this season ends this next month, April, we can move on to other shows either way. But one thing I have been told is that this is the episode. This is the episode where the big thing happens. I told you before that there was something really big coming that made a lot of fans just completely freak out on social media. I mentioned how I had heard about this. I had seen people freaking out, but I don't know the context of what it is. And I gave you, like, last time I gave you some various ideas of things it could be and stuff. And, like, my thoughts on, like, what would be, like, good options to do or bad options. I think, like, best options would be something like the destruction of the spirits and such consultation office, stuff like that. Maybe Mob's family or friends getting kidnapped by Claw. Stuff like that. Or maybe something like so out of nowhere, big and random, like Mob wakes up one day and just everyone's gone. Kind of like this almost like rapture-like event. Just everyone's just gone. That would be good. And then I talked about how there would be things that would be just like really bad, such as trying to kill off characters just really suddenly. That would be just really, really bad because it would feel, like I said last time, it would just feel like it was out of nowhere, like it was changing the status quo for the show too suddenly, because this show isn't the kind of show that would do that kind of thing. Yes, Mob Psycho has dealt in some pretty big stuff, for sure. But it's not the kind of show that would just randomly kill off notable characters or anything. And I'm just going based off of, like, again, the reaction that these people had. It has to be something big. It has to be something, like, massive. Something that would change the focus of the series and stuff. And obviously with any show, that kind of reaction is definitely, like, a worthy reaction to death. And the other stuff I mentioned, of course, and various other things here and there, but you get the point. A death at this point in the show would just, it would feel completely out of place. I think a comparison I made last time was like if you had the All Might versus All for One fight in Season 1 of My Hero Academia. It wouldn't work. That kind of fight would not work in Season 1. Now, I'm not talking about, like, specifically because of, oh, the story wouldn't make sense to have that fight at that point because of the story. No, I'm just talking about the overall feel of the anime. That kind of big, massive fight. Even if it was done like, even if the fight with Nomu at the end of season 1 was done in that kind of way, to that kind of degree and intensity, it would not work because it would feel completely out of place. That kind of fight, that kind of intensity, the kind of depth that was given to it only makes sense after you've seen these characters for multiple seasons. After you've seen their struggles, their fights, their story develop. It could not work in season 1. It would feel extremely rushed, out of nowhere, and it would just feel like they're trying too hard to push this grand epic thing. Another example, One Piece. One Piece had a lot of great fights in the early episodes and stuff. I mean, the fight against Arlong was fantastic. The fight against Don Krieg was great. But the first big fight, the first large-scale fight that felt like a really epic thing was Crocodile. And it took a while to get to Crocodile. Crocodile was built up more than any other villain before him. Arlong was definitely the second, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that fights like Arlong weren't really great and satisfying and intense and exciting. The depth of the story surrounding the Arlong Park arc is still makes that arc one of my all-time favorites of the entire series. And that fight is fantastic. But it doesn't feel as grand in scale as the Crocodile fight does. And the Crocodile fight, like I said, Crocodile's built up a lot more. He's built up through multiple arcs, which technically Arlong is too, but not to the degree. And Crocodile even beats Luffy in their first fight. They actually fight multiple times, and he actually wins at first, which makes their fight and their overall final confrontation mean even more. It builds it up even further. So it's like that. It would be like having the Crocodile fight as the first major fight of the series, which the first major fight I would say is Buggy the Clown. Or even saying like having the intensity and stuff of the Crocodile fight in the Arlong Park arc. It just would not work. It'd be too early for that. So it's like, that's the kind of thing I'm saying here. Mob Psycho doing something that major would feel so out of place. It would feel way too early for even a second season when the show, it has not built itself up to that point yet. Honestly, the events in this season would have made more sense for a first season, for Mob's growth and everything. Like late first season, but still first season. And there should have been a second season. We should have at least waited until a season 4 for this kind of thing, if that's what they're going for. Again, if it's something like the other stuff I said that would be more of a good, positive way to do it, then okay. But if it's something like death or something too major or something like that, it would just feel out of place. Now, having another member of Claw come in and attack Mob or his family would work fine. Or his friends or whoever, Reagan, Dimple, the other characters whose names I can never remember, like the blonde-haired guy. That kind of stuff would be fine. But I just don't want to see it take it too far. It's too early for that. They already messed that up with having that spirit guy, which, again, people have said that's like one of their favorite arcs of the entire show, if not their number one, which I really disagree on because it felt way too early for that kind of arc. For one. For two, it was only 2 episodes long and felt extremely rushed. 3, it was extremely disappointing in its second episode with how they handled it, etc., etc. And it's just like uh, they're trying to do too much while at the same time not doing enough with the series. And it's giving this really confused outlook to it that's really really not working in my eyes. And especially with this season, it seems like every arc of this season has just been these 2 episode mini arcs that just they feel extremely rushed. That Reagan arc, for example, should have lasted a lot longer. Having it only be 2 episodes really made it feel rushed and wasn't that satisfactory. Even though they did the right things for most of it, I really, really do not think Mob should have saved the day in the end. I think that actually really goes against everything that arc really felt like it was trying to say. But in the end, it just should have been longer. Should have been 4 episodes at least. I'm not saying that these arcs have to be as long as One Piece arcs. No, of course not. But it definitely should have been longer than 2. And since pretty much every arc this season has been 2 episodes, it feels too formulaic and just it's both not trying to do enough while at the same time trying to do too much, if that makes any sense. It's trying to do too many things while not giving enough time to any of them. So it's like, I really, really hope that they start to change that soon. But like I said, the plan for now is that we're going to watch episode 8 today, and then we're going to get on to, I don't know how many next week, but as many as we can get to, basically. That's going to depend on a lot of different factors. But yeah, I'm excited to see where this will go, and let's just get this going. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black, then it fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts, and will contain spoilers to the episode. So that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. I am so fucking pissed off right now. We're back and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1 now. I'm dropping this show. I'm just saying it right now, I'm dropping Mob Psycho. Not only did that come out of nowhere, not only did it feel completely out of place for the show, and especially for just the tone of not only this episode, but how this season has been going. As I mentioned in the pre-thoughts, comparing it to like doing the All Might versus All for One fight in season 1 of My Hero, how it wouldn't work. It doesn't work here to have this kind of fucking thing. I'm sorry, but even if I give it the benefit of the doubt and say that this is a fake out, just the idea of having this in here feels extremely out of place. Like, they kind of did this in season 1 with making it for a short bit think that one of the twins were dead. But the way they handled that was also really out of place and just felt completely, especially with the fact when it was found out that he wasn't dead and everything was just an illusion and shit, it felt really wrong even there. And not only does it feel really wrong here, it feels insulting. It feels insulting to me as a viewer, to my intelligence, to my ability to just understand how a show should work in terms of its pacing. This was so horribly out of place in terms of the pacing of this show. It came, like, here's the thing. I'm good with things kind of coming out of nowhere to a degree, if that is kind of the point of where things are going. But you have to do that, if you're going to do that, it has to be a lot earlier, and it has to change the entire dynamic of the show. A great example of this would be Higurashi no Naku Koro ni. When you start the series, you think, oh, it's going to be this nice, fun, friendly little show, but then it reveals pretty quickly, actually, that it's a horror anime, and that it's actually pretty fucking messed up and kind of hard to watch at some points. The point is, it doesn't take too long to get there, and it doesn't build up the show as something completely... It builds up the show... It doesn't... Okay. It doesn't build up the show as something completely different. It fools you at first, but it doesn't build it up in a way that makes it come across as extremely jarring when the big change happens. Instead, it kind of feels like, oh, that's interesting. That's exciting. What the hell is happening here? Because of the pacing of it. Pacing is everything with this kind of thing. If you're going to do something like this, it has to, like I said, it has to be much earlier on, and the entire show has to change in its focus, its scope. The characters have to change drastically. Everything has to change from that point on. And Higurashi did it in a way where the time loop was a focused part of the show, where it's like, oh yeah, it would go back to how characters were like all friendly and nice with each other, but you'd also start to, even in those moments, see darker aspects of things. And because it's a time loop, you know where it's going to end up. You know that they're going to end up killing each other, but also you see very quickly that it happens in different ways, in different manners each time. So you're always wondering, okay, what exactly is going to happen this time? How is it going to change? How is it going to be different? It's done in such a masterful way with Higurashi. Here, everything in me is screaming right now because of how poorly this was handled. This series is not this kind of show. This is not this kind of series to where doing this kind of thing is fucking acceptable. And again, even if they were going to do this kind of thing, this would have made sense. This would have worked better in Season 1. Here would be an example. Season 1, Claw starts getting involved in things. All of a sudden, Mob has had a couple confrontations with Claw. Then all of a sudden, he comes home one day, sees this, same kind of thing happens. Then, from that point on, the series drastically takes a darker tone. The lighthearted stuff with Reagan and their spirit hunting becomes legitimately going after Claw and trying to attack them, trying to find them. Some real legitimate psychic battles, maybe some moments where Mob starts questioning his life, some really deep shit, basically. And the entire rest of the series is like that, with maybe a couple points of levity, especially with Reagan maybe trying to cheer him up, or even Dimple. But the fact is, they spent an entire season last season, and now 7 episodes prior to this, and technically 8 episodes, because this happened at the very end of this episode. 8 episodes of this season, along with all of last season, establishing what kind of show this was, and it is not this kind of show where having even fake out for the deaths of important characters like this is okay. And I mean, obviously the parents aren't as important to the overall narrative as Ritsu is, but still. And again, even if it's a fake out, even if the guy from Claw, I don't know his name, by the way, even if he kidnapped Ritsu and their parents and just made some like fake cadavers or something, which is possible, I will acknowledge. Even if so, it would still not change the fact that they gave this fake out, that they made this feel like a legitimate thing, and that it still came out of nowhere and doesn't fit the tone and feel of the show. That doesn't change. This episode was getting me hyped up. The entire stuff with Mob really, really showing his character development, really starting to work towards this marathon. And I mean, I'm fine with him not winning it, by the way. We even got some hints that maybe Sabomi likes him too, which I'm all good for, by the way. I'm completely on board with that ship. But yeah, either way, either way, we see that we have all this hype up, building up to the marathon. And again, even if he doesn't win, it is great for his character development. It gives him so much. The fact that he supposedly finished, even despite having passed out in the end, and not winning, not completing his goal even, that's something to be proud of. That's something to be amazed by. The very first scene of this episode is a huge, huge fucking death flag. The cold open showing the past memory of Mob and Ritsu playing, having a picnic with their parents and playing around, and Mob using his powers and stuff when he gets emotional. Like, that was a huge death flag and really got me really worried right off the bat. But then the episode started going in a different direction, and especially when he fell and scraped his knee in a similar way to when he scraped his knee a little bit when he was a kid. I thought that was the parallel and everything. And I thought that's how it was connecting. And nope. I was right in my first instinct, and they fucked it up. I'm sorry, this was... I may seem like I'm overreacting here, but this kind of thing pisses me off. This kind of thing pisses me off. Let's compare it to Ruby, because I've been comparing things to this show to other things as well, and this kind of concept to other things. Ruby's third season got notably darker halfway through. With Yang, well, okay, I think a little more than halfway through, but either way, with Yang being accused of doing something extremely horrible in the tournament, to the entire attack on Beacon, and of course Yang losing her arm, and Penny and Pyrrha dying. Volume 3 of Ruby was very dark, but it was built up. That darkness and everything was built up from the beginning of the show. It didn't come out of nowhere. It didn't feel out of place for the specific time that it took place. And in fact, it felt like it was actually the perfect time to change things up. It felt like the perfect time in terms of the pacing of the show to really make that adjustment. And the stuff that actually happened worked for the content of the show. It worked for the tone and feel of what Ruby was. It didn't feel like it came out of nowhere. It felt like natural progression of the story. And everything that's happened after in Ruby, definitely continuation of that. And yes, it was still notably darker than anything that had happened in seasons 1 or 2. But it still felt natural in it. It didn't feel like it was just forced for the sake of having something like that. This feels like the writers of, I guess, the manga one, who wrote the who created Mob Psycho and everything. It feels like this was thrown in just for shock value. And I hate when something like this is thrown in for shock value. Because the death of a loved one, or even, again, if it's fake, the perceived death of a loved one, is a massive event in any show, movie, game, etc. To have it just completely come out of nowhere, feel completely out of place with the tone of the show, it'd be like watching Ouran High School Host Club and suddenly one of the twins is brutally murdered by having their throat fucking slit. That is how out of place this feels. It does not work. And it's infuriating. It ruins my interest in the show. Because if they're going to just do this out of nowhere, there's no rules anymore. There's no concept of any tone or feeling for this series anymore. If they're just going to do this, they could do whatever the fuck they want, and that's not okay. That takes away the entire just structure of the series. There has to be limits. There has to be proper pacing, proper handling of situations like this. Again, even if they could have done this at the end of season, a fourth season, or a third season even, at the end of a third season, or even sometime during a fourth season, and this would have worked fantastic at that point, because they would have had a lot more time to build things up, and especially if they actually made it work to where they built up the show to start moving into that darker territory. But it just feels like they've just been trying to throw too much in. And again, this is not the first time this season they've done this, where they've brought in a concept that was way too early in terms of the show's current pacing and tone. I want to say his name is Mogami or Mogami or something like that. The evil spirit dude who used to be like a really high ranking sidekick and everything. That entire thing, again, he felt more like an end game boss, or at least a very late game boss. It did not work, his arc, because it was way too early. And you guys assured me that, oh, if you think he's strong, just wait. And it's like, okay, maybe there are others who are stronger in Claw, and I'll give you that. But even if that's so, it's like, it's still, at that point in time, a really bad choice. A really bad decision to make, and really hurts the overall series. This season, it started off promising. That entire, the Ghost Woman episode, I think it was episode 2, I loved that episode. You guys know that. I loved that episode. This season started off promising. The first couple episodes were great. But then it just started to go downhill as it tried to start doing too much. And again, not giving enough focus to anything and not pacing it properly. And it's throwing just a bunch of big things in. The Mogami guy, then it throws in this entire thing with Reagan, and now this, and it's just like, oh my god. One, throwing 3 major developments in the course of a few episodes does not work in and of itself. That pacing is atrocious. You do not do... That is terrible. I'm sorry, but that's basically how it was. It was, okay, I think there was something between Mogami and Reagan, wasn't there? Let me check that real quick. I could probably bring that up. But the point is, even if there was one other little mini arc between that, it's still way too quick. Okay, 6 and 7 were the Reagan ones. Six and 7 were Reagan. And 4 and 5 were the Mogami ones. So yeah, it was 4 and 5 was Mogami, 6 and 7 was Reagan, and now 8 is this. It's 3 big developments in the course of a few episodes. That does not work. That's horribly paced. The Mogami thing should not have happened until at least the very end of this season. The Reagan thing would have worked maybe at the beginning of the season. And then this, definitely not in this season at all. Again, maybe at the very end of season 3, or more fittingly in a 4th season. A lot of people are saying that this season has definitely jumped this up to one of their favorite, if not their favorite anime. I said that in my pre-thoughts as well. People were freaking out, positively, mind you, about this episode when it first aired. I don't understand. Maybe it's just me, but I don't understand. I have lost interest in this show, and I've actually grown to really I'm just really upset at it at the moment. I don't necessarily hate the show altogether, but I've lost interest in it. I don't want to continue on. I don't care anymore. This development pisses me off. Thinking about how there are 3 big fucking developments in a row pisses me off. And I can't deal with this anymore. Again, even if this is a fake out, even if Ritsu and the parents are fine, which honestly they most likely are, it doesn't change the fact that they tried this fake out. It doesn't change the fact that they make the viewers and mob believe that Ritsu and their parents are fucking dead. That does not change. With the Mogami episode, they ruined it with the second of them by just completely ruining Mogami's just intimidation factor completely. With the second episode of the Reagan arc, they ruined it by having Mob fix the problems and kind of at least partially repairing Reagan's just viewing and standings with people. His popularity, I guess you could say. And now this, it's just too many mistakes. Too many issues, too many problems. I can't handle this anymore. This show is it's pissing me off. It's doing too many things wrong. And I don't want to watch it anymore. It's making me angry, and I hate being angry. Anger, sorrow, those are 2 of the worst emotions I ever feel. And I never want to feel that way while reacting to a show. And it's one thing to be sorrowful or angry at a show for understandable reasons. Like, okay, a character you love, you see them crying, you see them really emotional, like with Narancia and JoJo. Yeah, that's going to make me emotional. That's going to make me sad. I don't want to see my baby boy cry. But that's understandable. That's good writing. You want to feel what your favorite characters are feeling. You want to be able to connect with them. And you can't connect this anger that I'm feeling right now with the anger that Mob felt at the end of this episode, because it's not the same anger. It's not the same kind of thing. My anger is not birthed from the same kind of place that Mob's is. My anger is not anger at the Claw guy for doing what he did. My anger is at the show for doing what it did. Like I said, this could have worked. This storyline could work. Whether it's fake or not. If it were done at the end of a 3rd season for this show, or in a 4th season for this show, and there was proper build-up to make this series, its tone and feeling darker. 7 episodes leading up to this one, with poorly handled plot lines, is not proper build-up. And the episodes in Season 1 were not build-up to anything dark like this. I just said in my pre-thoughts that the plan was that next week I was going to try and marathon a few episodes to try and get caught up. That's not happening now. I know some of you are going to be upset by this. I know that there might even be some people who not only downvote this video, but probably even unsubscribe. And that's your right. You have every right to do that. You have every right to disagree with me on this. You have every right to try and speak your opinion on it. But I'm probably not going to change my mind. I might loosen up a little bit to where I'm not this violently angry at the show right now. But I'm not going to... I can't see this in any other way. I am just utterly pissed the fuck off right now. And I can't continue watching a show that elicits this kind of anger for it at me. I can't watch a show that makes me this angry at the show and its writing and its pacing. Because even if episodes after this are good and things are fixed to some degree, this is still going to piss me off. And again, they could do whatever the fuck they want from this point forward because there's no set rules at this point. There's no tone. There's no regulation for how this show should run, for how the pacing should be. It doesn't matter at this point. And even if they handle things fine from here on out, that is still looming over my head and still looming over this show. And just the general gist of it, I don't want to watch anymore. I have lost pretty much all interest in this show at this point. Because of this, I can't even call this a mistake, because a mistake implies that it's unintentional, or that it's not as big a deal, that it can kind of be waved off. No, this is not just a mistake. This is a problem with this. With this problem, I cannot... I have lost pretty much all interest in this show. I said my rank, my scale for it would have to be below 10%. I'm having a hard time justifying giving this a 2% right now. I'm sorry for ranting so long about this, but honestly, I could go on even longer. This just fucking pisses me the hell off. This is the absolute worst option they could have taken. So yeah, I'm done with this show. I'm done with it. Next Monday, we're moving on. We're going to bring back Young Justice Outsiders. And hopefully that show at least has some common sense. And based on the first episode, I mean, it should. But I thought that with the first episode of this. So who knows. Young Justice Outsiders next Monday. See you then.
And though you've come through many obstacles,